26th of May. Unbelievable. 2025. Wow. Okay. Happy 26th of May 2025. It is Memorial Day. So happy Memorial Day to all my fellow citizens in the U.S. and outside the U.S. And a big special thank you and salute to all of the people who've ever served the U.S. in some capacity, whether you're in the Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, Coast Guard, or some element of the government that is not necessarily the armed forces. Maybe you were in the Peace Corps, maybe you were in the other volunteer units, maybe you worked in some way in a government job. But on this day, on Memorial Day, we remember specifically, more than anybody, right, those who served and fell, especially those who served in armed conflicts and in the military for the United States, and those who fell serving the United States in armed conflicts or the military. So we salute you. Now, with that said, Memorial Day has also become quite the holiday, a tradition where Americans celebrate, I guess, commemorate the fallen and the injured and wounded and etc. And POWs as well, MIAs, by having barbecues and things of that nature. It's very different than the Memorial Day we have here in Israel. The Memorial Day in Israel here, it's a very solemn day. It's not a day of celebration, because what happens is later in that day, it becomes, at the end of Memorial Day in Israel, it becomes Independence Day. So the mood changes from very, very somber to completely, party-like atmosphere, like in an instant. It's kind of surreal. But in America, obviously, you don't have Independence Day immediately following Memorial Day. So they combine, rather than having a somber day the whole day, Memorial Day, people usually, for the most part, really just celebrate. But there are obviously commemorations and events where people do remember those who served and those who sacrificed, and those whose sacrifice was the ultimate sacrifice, and every shade in between. Now, hard to believe that even now, all these years later. So, with that said, what's going on with the Bitcoin markets? Did you look at Bitcoin in the recent hours? Did you see what happened with the new central weekly range, which shifted up and is relatively tighter than last week's, and the new central daily range, which managed to move up a little and is also tight enough to still be a trending day? I noticed that also on some altcoins. So what does that mean? Well, that means that overall that's good for the asset. If you want the asset to be going up, well, when the central daily range is moving up, that's generally good. And if it tests it and stays above it, that's even better. If it just floats above it the whole day and never even tests it, well, fantastic. But usually it will test the central daily range. Also, the central weekly range usually gets tested. So if it doesn't test that at the beginning of the week, very often it'll test it later. Maybe middle of the week, maybe end of the week, who knows? But it's very rare that the whole central weekly range will not get tested, at least at one point during the week. So it could happen. It's just pretty unusual. It's like, central monthly ranges also tend to get tested. It is extremely rare that those don't get tested. Could happen, but it doesn't happen often. Um, and likewise, even the central daily ranges, they just typically get tested. So expect, if it hasn't already tested it, expect that there's a pretty decent probability that it will. But of course, look to the lower time frames because it might just have. And I haven't seen the chart now in about an hour and a half, 2 hours. Last time I looked at it, maybe 3 hours. Last time I looked at it, it hadn't tested it yet. I wonder if you guys can tell what this is yet. If you can't tell what this is yet, I don't know what to tell you. Here, let me see. You can see that. I mean, can you tell what that is or not? Can you tell what this is or not? No? Is it possible? Can you tell what that is? I really hope you can. It's a crop, taller than the average person. There's some golden colored things there starting to grow at the top of the very leafy crop that grows very well in rows. What I find funny about this crop is that the rows at the edges of the field typically have shorter plants than in the middle of the field here. So the plants are, about as tall as they get. I mean, they get taller than they are right now in terms of as they start to grow the crop. But the plants that are on the edge of the field tend to be shorter than the plants in the middle of the field, which is funny because the plants at the edge of the field don't need to fight so much for to get light. So you'd think they'd get plenty of sunlight, therefore they'd grow taller. But it's the opposite. It's because the ones in the middle of the field have to fight more to get light. And remember, this field was completely flat like 3 months ago. I mean, there was literally nothing there 3 months ago. They hadn't even put the seeds in the ground. And these things are now more than 6 feet tall. I mean, even taller. I don't even know how tall they are, but they're definitely way more than 6 feet tall. But yeah, you can see as you get closer to the edge of the field and where there's less competition for light, the plants actually get shorter. It's as if competition makes them grow taller, right? Makes them fight for the light. In fact, here you're going to see an instance of what I mean. Look at the plants. They're still relatively tall. And then right here, 5 rows in, they start to get shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. Until literally the ones at the end there are maybe 2/3 of the height, 3/4 of the height of the ones in the middle of the field. Kind of amazing, right? By the way, if you know what that is, write it, and if your guess is correct, you get a prize, a special prize, which I will disclose. Hi, what happened? Said hi. I see you. I say hi. I don't always see your comments when you're chatting because I'm walking here and the sun's in my face, and I don't really see the text very clearly and all that while I'm talking and walking. I'm walking here. I'm walking. No, I was asking you guys if you know what kind of crop that is growing there. Well, okay. So, yeah, so Bitcoin had a nice little bounce. Oh, look, lavender. Lavender. You see that? Lavender. Very nice. So Bitcoin had a nice little bounce up on the central daily range, moving up, and the central weekly range as well. And that makes for a nice setup for the last week in May. If you look at the weekly time frame, you'll notice the asset's pretty much been going up on the weekly time frame, yeah, since like the first or second week of April. I think starting April 7th or something like that. It's been pretty much going up since then. After we had that little downside maneuver on traditional markets, followed by a very snappy upside maneuver, right, which you would call a V-shaped recovery. Okay? And so the market, traditional market, went, shot down between January and March, or beginning of April, and then bounced right back up starting in early April on the S&P, etc. It's because it was a mean reversion. And people can say it was exacerbated by the so-and-so, the policy, the uncertainty, the chaos, the confusion. You can say whatever you want about it. The fact is still, the market was in mean reversion already before that happened, and was simply continuing the mean reversion when that happened, and completed the mean reversion, and then redistributed a little bit to the downside, and then began to mean revert back to the upside. Right? Because that's what the returns do, right? They do two things. They distribute and they mean revert. They don't really do anything else. They distribute away from the means of returns, and they mean revert to the means of returns. Okay, so if you consider that that's basically what happened in March, April, May, you have a very nice setup for the traditional markets heading into June, if it can stay at or above where it is this coming week. Now, what are the probabilities that the markets will, in fact, stay where they're at this coming week, or that they'll dump out? Well, look at the probability indicators. Look at the Laplace distributions. Look at the normal distributions. Those literally tell you where the probabilities are for the moves to the upside and the downside and sideways, right? And you can see where those targets are. There's always a 1 standard deviation probability, a 2 standard deviation probability, a 3 standard deviation. And there's gradations, right? You could have a 1.5 standard deviation, or 1.27% deviation, or 1.83 deviation. These things are calculable and measurable. But typically speaking, 1, 2, and 3, sometimes 4, 5, and 6 standard deviations is what you'll see between 1, 2, and 3 on any given time frame. Right? Why? Because the bots that move the markets are made by mankind, and they are simple bots that run on maths, not emotions, and they do simple things. They typically like to do things in threes. They love the number 3. Triplicates. Things that repeat themselves 3 times, right? Or things that happen 3 times in a row, or 3 standard deviations, or up to 3 standard deviations. Why? Because it's simple calculations that way. That's why. They're relatively simple calculations that, if you know all the other competitors, well, why wouldn't you exploit your advantage in some way, right? By A, doing what they're doing on some things, and then B, doing something a little bit differently on some other things, right? So, like, if you see all the competitors are making a fortune by using 1, 2, and 3 standard deviations on Laplace distributions and normal distributions, so you do that. But then if you see, the way that they're doing it is by shifting the size of their positions in a certain way, and if you see it's not working well for them, then you double down on that and make it work well for you. Right? If they're not doing it well,
then you figure out a way to make it work well for you. That's the trick.
don't do what they don't do well, like in a bad way. Do what they don't do well better than they ever did it, better than they ever thought possible. Do that, right?
Do the thing they thought is impossible.
That's what you got to go for. Because if you're just going to try to be a copy of them, that's not usually going to work. You don't want to be a copy of your competitor necessarily. You want to be better than them at the thing that they're not good at, which will help you have your own identity, help you distinguish yourself from the pack. And that's super important. Okay. Anyway, if you want to learn how to trade, come to alphatradinghq.com/discord. And we're having a sale on our indicators and our tutoring package through Memorial Day, which is today. And yeah, come put your order in before the end of Memorial Day. We run it as late as we can, so like Hawaii time. End of Memorial Day, Hawaii time, right? Technically, Memorial Day hasn't even started in Hawaii. Right? So you have more than 24 hours left. You have like another 28 hours or something until the end of Memorial Day, I believe. So if you do that, then as long as you place your order by the end of Memorial Day in Hawaii, then you will be able to get the indicator packages at the reduced prices, and also the tutoring package at the reduced price. And again, the tutoring package includes a full year of the indicator package, so you get that at a massively reduced price because you're getting 12 one-hour sessions with a tutor, which is usually me or Bilbo. Nobody else is tutoring, at least officially, from Alpha Trading. We don't certify anybody. We don't sell the ability to become a tutor officially on our behalf. Right? You got to be one of the co-founders to do it. And so far, the only co-founders that have actually ever done it are, like actively are myself and Bilbo. And there's a reason, right? Because we're the ones who do this educational stuff with the indicators the most, right? Or the other co-founders are mostly busy doing other things, so they don't necessarily have time. Anyway, it is available if you want. Come get it and enjoy the indicator package and enjoy the indicator package and the tutoring, or just the indicator. Either way, whatever indicator packages, up to you. Free stuff, you can always come and get the free stuff. You don't need Happy Trading. Peace. Oh, I forgot to mention, we are actually having a live stream today, even though it's a holiday. There should be a live stream starting at 11 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time today, Memorial Day.